How is this volume for everyone? I've gotten a lot of good feedback from the back. Go up, up, up. Okay. Wow. All right, friends. I'm using my outside voice. Okay. Okay.
That's okay. Talk amongst yourselves.
Exactly.
Turn and hug your neighbor. Bathrooms are to the side.
Well, here's something to think about. Please turn your cell phones off so we don't have any interruptions. And we are broadcasting worldwide here on the Zoom. And this is live right now. There, everybody's on. Hello, Zoom people. Okay.
Hi, everybody. Oh, here come Al and Ellie now. That's all right. Do you want me to stop?
No, go ahead.
Okay. All right. I just want to thank everybody for joining us, both here in person and on Zoom, on behalf of the Louis and Kayan families. And a lot of you know that I've been compiling a book that's put together by a company called Fawn Folio. And it's a questionnaire with 5 easy questions, things like, how did you meet Gail? What's a quality about her that you admired? If she could be remembered as an inanimate object, what would it be? Anything else you'd like to tell us? So literally it's a quick questionnaire. It's all of 1,800 characters, which goes very fast. Many of you have already sent things and they're wonderful stories that none of us would have known. So I think back on the memory table, there's an email sign up. And if you would like to contribute to the book, please just leave your email and I will send you the questionnaire. So far we have something like 66 submissions and they've just been wonderful and we appreciate it very much. So thank you for bringing us stories that we never would have known.
Thank you. So I wanted to start, of course, by welcoming all of you in person, in spirit, and online to the celebration of the life of Gail Louis. If an acorn drops during the program off the tree, collect it for me and I will plant it for Gail in the Oakland Hills. I wanted to thank Teresa Wong so much for her musical accompaniment on the cello. She set a wonderful tone for the celebration and comforted us as we settled in. Teresa is a composer, cellist, vocalist who thrives at the intersection of composition, improvisation, and synergy of multiple disciplines. And she was awarded a Guggenheim Fellowship this year. And she previously taught piano to Nico and cello to Gabriel. So they're going to be playing musical instruments later. Gail had a profound presence in our lives. She was generous in words and deeds. She possessed a quiet strength and a fine-tuned sense of humor. And she deeply understood the power and value of giving. The last time I saw Gail, she handed me a present wrapped in silk fabric with a watercolor image of Mount Fuji. Inside, I found a hand-stitched leather wine carrier. It was the most beautiful I'd ever seen. As I held the silk fabric in my hand, Gail explained to me the Japanese custom of wrapping presents in colorful fabrics and giving them to family and friends. The expectation was that the recipients will use these same fabrics again to wrap presents for others. That was Gail embedding zero waste principles into multicultural enlightenment. Of course, one of Gail's remarkable traits was finding the perfect gifts to precisely match another person's unique personality and interests. That's how she communicated that she truly knew and appreciated you. Our home is full of perfect gifts from Gail and memories of her generosity. The present she gave me in our last moment together was a thank you for the work I had recently done for Gail and Rob to improve the health of their oak tree. Here's the thing. Gail had already sent me a handwritten thank you card for the same favor. This practice of sending handwritten thank yous is exceedingly rare in our culture now. And doing so was already enough of an acknowledgement for the favor I had offered. But Gail knew the value and the power of giving, and she honored the gifts given to her with deep gratitude. I don't know if I can ever part with that silk fabric that Gail gave to me during our last moment together. She would probably encourage me to pass it along, but she might be okay with me keeping it too. Perhaps it is the final talisman from Gail to remind me to be generous to others in words and deeds, and to be grateful for everything tangible and intangible. On our program, we have time set aside for family remembrances. And I believe we're going to start with Dr. Kan. And I'm going to be here by him.
Thank you, Tim. And thank you, everyone.
Sound really loud to you, but they need to hear it in the back. So okay,
Can you hear me? All right, well, first off, the Louis and the Kahan family very much appreciate your being here. And we're celebrating Gail's life. And I just want to thank you all for being here today. So Gail and I met as teenagers in college in Boston 45 years ago. And we started as a couple 42 years ago, 1982. And our first date was, we met at the Campanile Tower behind the oak tree. And then we walked to the north side and had pizza at Laval's Pizza. Pretty fancy. We got married at a Bernard Maybeck art studio 2 blocks on the north side of campus on Leroy. And every so often we would celebrate the anniversary of our first date by going back to Laval's Pizza, just to remind us how awful Laval's Pizza is. So coming here today to another Maybeck building just seemed right to celebrate Gail's life. Together we made a home filled with love. We watched Nico and Gabriel grow. Together we enjoyed watching them become who they are today. It was a wonderful life together. Gail's most beautiful qualities were her unfading good nature, kindness that she shared with everyone in every direction. She was thoughtful, quiet, and calm. Gail wasn't interested in being the center of attention. The last thing Gail would ever have wanted is to sit here today and be praised by all of you. It would be mortifying to her. She would be beet red. Anyway, where did Gail get all these qualities of good nature, kindness, quiet thoughtfulness, and calm? One telling story happened when Gail, still a teenager in high school, was traveling with her dad, Ronald, to look at colleges on the East Coast. They were in a restaurant, maybe in Providence, and he told her he had to put money in the parking meter. And then mysteriously, he disappeared for over an hour. And she was anxiously waiting and wondering what happened to this guy. And there were no cell phones. Good reminder. Thank you. Apparently, an elderly woman asked Ronald to help her walk home. And he was so good-natured. He, of course, said, yes, I'd be happy to. And off they went on a much longer walk than he anticipated. When they reached her home, the woman thanked Ronald, reached into her purse, and gave him a quarter. I think a sizable part of Gail's good nature came from her father, a remarkably patient and good-natured man. From Betty, of course, Gail got her sense of style and fashion. I'm looking at all this purple and jewelry, and everyone who's wearing a piece of clothing, jacket, shirt, jewelry, hat inspired by Gail, just stand up for a moment so everyone else can see. Wow. Spectacular. The tie I'm wearing today is the tie Gail picked. She picked out for me to wear on our wedding. And over the last 4 months, we've received an overwhelming amount of love and care from all of you. Warm words of condolence, a remarkable meal train that was so helpful over the summer. This service wouldn't have been possible without the efforts of a beautiful group of caring friends who made this happen. And this outpouring of love, to me, is a reflection of the care and attention Gail gave to you. Many times over the last 4 months, I've been told privately and in cards that Gail was the special person that made you feel seen, that made you feel heard, and made you feel valued. But at her core, Gail was interested in talking about ideas. She was not interested in talking about people. She wasn't interested in talking about herself, for sure. But she was interested in ideas and getting things done. One of the ideas she was keenly focused on and worked hardest on during her long career at the EPA was a collaboration with the Karuk and Yurok tribes to restore a fish passage for salmon and steelhead trout over 400 miles of the Klamath River watershed. And the Klamath River watershed was blocked by 4 Pacific Core dams: J.C. Boyle, Copco 1 and 2, and Iron Gate. You see, among her posts at the EPA, Gail managed the tribal clean water section, and she coordinated the Klamath River and Lost River watershed, TMDL. She worked with many of you here today at the EPA, the tribes, the states of California and Oregon, and dozens of other stakeholders on what was to become the largest dam removal, habitat restoration effort in U.S. history. Sure, Tina's going to talk more about this, and I know Clayton's going to talk more about this. But imagine, after working tirelessly on this effort for decades, with many of you here today, how thrilled and honored and personally satisfied Gail was to see the removal of those dams this year. Gail had a most meaningful life filled with purpose and mission. And together we had more than a handful of adventures. Gail felt your love, even if it had been a while, even too long since you had last seen her. She felt your love, and she loved us and appreciated us in return. What I can say to you today is how fortunate I feel to have had these past 42 years to love Gail, to live with her and grow our family, and to share a good life together.
Thank you, Dr. Kane. Very impressive. Great tribute to Gail. We have other members of is it Betty? Betty is a woman of fine fashion and has an incredible memory. And I'm gonna get this. So Betty, this is gonna sound super loud to you, but that's the way the people in the back are gonna hear it.
So you have to actually.
Yeah, you have to.
Okay. I am Betty Louis. Today, we honor a life that was truly a gift. My daughter Gail was the strong thread in the tapestry of our family. Steady, resilient, often quiet, yet always there, holding things together in ways that matter more than words could express. Her strength wasn't loud or flashy, but if you look carefully, you see the beauty of her presence. Her thread wove through our lives with grace and steadiness, adding depth and warmth to everything it touched. For me, losing her is like pulling of that thread and unraveling. But as we gather here, it's not to dwell on that loss, but to celebrate the beautiful pattern she helped create in the fabric of our lives. Her thread made everyone else appear more bright and more beautiful. We were lucky to have her in our tapestry, and we're even luckier to carry that strength forward as we continue to live, love, and celebrate her and the pattern she left behind. And so we will keep weaving ever stronger because of her, and her spirit will forever be part of the intricate, joyful design that she helped create. That's how we'll carry her with us, not in sorrow, but with gratitude for the rich, full life we have the privilege of sharing with her. I'd like to share one story with you. Gail was the strategic planner of many lives, mine certainly. I just want to tell you, she started that young. When she was going to kindergarten at the age of 5, we lived in as the tradition, you walk to school and you walk home for lunch. And she went with a little friend. One day I got worried, Gail didn't show up, neither did her friend. I got a phone call from the lady, said, well, Gail walked up to her door, rang the doorbell, and said she was very tired and hungry. So the lady said, of course, she took her in and fed both of them, and she would drive them back to school, and said to me not to worry. She was happy to make them toasted cheese sandwiches anytime. So you can see that she was very skilled at a very young age. Thank you. Thank you so much for helping us weave our tapestry.
Thank you. Yeah, perfect. Okay. My sister Gail had a beautiful soul. 3 years younger than I and 6 years older than Allison, she was the quintessential middle sister. Gail combined my parents' superpowers, my mom's remarkable ability to connect and brighten the world, and my dad's extraordinary patience and organizational skills. My husband, Terry, Gail would remember that today would have been his 86th birthday, always called her the nice one. I used to ask, couldn't he call her at least the nicer one? But over time, I decided it took too much energy to be as nice as Gail. I'm nice enough, 8, maybe 8.5 on a really good day on a scale of 1 to 10. But as every single person here knows, Gail was consistently at least a 15. She had an exceptional talent for discovering what people, sometimes even total strangers, even dogs, wanted or needed, and then assuring that it happened. So some of you have probably met my niece Ellie, but some of you also know Gail's other niece, my very smart, mischievous golden doodle, Teddy. Gail subscribed Ted to BarkBox, picking the special version that's created for super chewers, otherwise known as dogs that destroy toys in 5 minutes. Last December, she ordered Ted the special Costco dog advent calendar that repeatedly sold out, going online multiple times daily until she secured one. Gail always made me open the car window so Ted could smell everything around us or the wind could blow in her face. And she found ways to make it more challenging and interesting for Teddy to hoover up her food. Ted leads a pretty sweet life, but Gail made it even better because, as she did for everyone, she took the time to actually see Ted. For example, Ted likes to run away, and Gail recognized that it's not even worth trying to catch her until she gives in, and that's when Teddy's decided she's sufficiently humiliated us. And she noticed that the car blinker always elicits hope in Ted, and then a snort of disappointment if it doesn't indicate a turn toward a preserve. She always bought Ted the treats and toys that turned out to be her favorites, and she was a way better dog mom than I am. And like me, Ted will always bound down the steps of the other house, hoping and thinking Gail will be waiting for us there. And that's how she treated a dog. Someone in Stonington, which is where I live, who met Gail just a couple of weeks before she died and spent only an hour with her, texted me to say, "Such a beautiful woman. I loved her right away. I'm honored that the universe put her in my path. We had such a great visit." I was fortunate enough to have known her for her entire life. 63 years, she had just celebrated her birthday. And stupidly, I waited the first third of those fighting with her as siblings do. But after she went to college, we became best of friends. And I was lucky enough to spend part of every summer for nearly the past 30 years with her in Maine. In fact, the promise of summer, often captured in video through the sunroof as we cross the Deer Isle Bridge, will never be the same for me. Sorry. Stonington and Deer Isle was our happy place, and every memory there, every road, every cove we explored, every tag sale we went to, every new food source we discovered is inextricably linked to her. Having Gail for my sister was the next best thing to having a twin. No surprise, I was the evil one. She claimed to like hanging around with me because she could talk less and take fewer pictures. We're famous for how many pictures we take. I, on the other hand, could be totally lazy when hanging with her. As most of you know, she was the consummate travel agent, shopper, tour guide, meal planner, and sidekick. Over the years, we have traveled on some amazing vacations together, so there are endless memories of eating, exploring, and shopping, and our complimentary Google photo albums that we assembled, often meals from opposite sides of the table. One of our favorite memories was dinner at the Lost Kitchen, a magical, unforgettable evening where the ideal combination of food, companions, and setting created the perfect convivial ambiance. She saved the voicemail saying her postcard, literally one of 20,000, had been picked. I think Gabriel's still sorry he didn't come to that dinner. Several of the submissions for the Fawn Folio book mention the privilege friends have felt having a day alone with Gail as a tour guide. I was fortunate enough to have that experience every time we were together. Sometimes I was the guide. And I'm happy to say that I never ever took her for granted. As one of her friends said, Gail was everyone's personal concierge. She's the one person I never doubted. If she told me something, a fact, where to eat, what to buy, I always accepted her advice as gospel, never argued with her. And now, instead of just coasting on her coattails, I'll have to pick up some of the slack, damn it. And I just want to point out, if she was so nice, she wouldn't have left us. Ray Charles said, live every day as if it's your last, because one day you're going to be right. In going through Gail's photos for this memorial, I take consolation about her premature death from the evidence that she fully embraced her last several months and made the most of her time. Just since New Year's, she had photos from dinner at Chez Panisse, the trip to the Klamath to celebrate the removal of the dams, an impromptu visit to London, Oxford, and Cambridge, that amazing Baja cruise, the boys' birthday celebrations, and Mother's Day with Rob's and my mom, all interspersed with our usual photos of food, menus, hikes, and sunsets. I am sure that even though she was unaware she was dying in her last moments, her heart was filled with grace, peace, love, and gratitude for the life she had lived and the people she had known. I wish that for all of us when our time comes. And as anyone who spent any time with her knows, Gail had an amazing appreciation for the small details of the beautiful natural world around her. I'd like to share this poem that hopefully will make you notice the quiet beauty of your surroundings and think of her when you were doing so. It's called Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep, and it's by Claire Harner. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die.
Do we have other members of the family? Here we go.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Alice. I'm the youngest child. Okay. Gail Louis is many things, but mean isn't one of them. While she wasn't a saint, don't get me wrong, she came pretty close. She radiated a warmth and compassion that drew people to her. And she was willing to help anyone at a moment's notice. Of all of our family, many would say she was among the nicest, using her powers of calculation for good. Still, some of us know better. Once, when we were very little, she had to give me breakfast, and she fed me cereal with water. When I complained, she said I was lucky to get breakfast at all. Still, all of the good things you will hear people say about her, not just today, but on any given day, are true. Gail was a teacher of many thoughtful life lessons, sharing her wisdom with many of us here right now. One of the most useful things she ever taught me was to lick my fingers before discarding my gum so that it wouldn't stick. And I remember being so impressed by this that I told her at the time that I would include it with you. I just didn't realize it would happen quite so soon. You see, she had much to give and many life lessons still to share. She had promised me that when we next got together, she was going to teach me how to double knot my shoelaces so that I could unpull them with a single pull, which is something that she learned from Paul. This, among many other things, I have yet to master. Even as kids, Gail had a meticulous eye for detail. When I was little, I hated taking a bath. So come bath time, I would go up to the bathroom and I would lock the door, something you're never supposed to do. I would fill up the tub and then I would sit down on the bath mat and read Little House on the Prairie, occasionally dangling my arm in the water, splashing about. And when bath time was over, I would plunge my arms into the bath drag them across my towel, and I would repeat that several times to be sitting. And she knew that I wasn't taking a bath. So it took her a couple of times before she caught me out. But when she finally did, I asked her, "How did you know?" She said, "Oh." And she said to me, "You forgot to wet the soap." And that right there was my sister. Oh,
Hold the punchline.
hold on. I hate this part. You want me to, no? It must be my fantastic personality that just blew everything out.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
I just want to keep going. Can everyone still hear me?
No power.
No, all right.
People.
No, I was just
people
wondering
are
whether I
having
could
trouble.
speak loud enough.
That's not power. The power is off. Yeah. So Nancy, power from you.
I could shout, but I don't know whether everyone could still hear me. Should I just carry on? Okay. Okay, so 3 men walked into a bar. So she knew that I wasn't taking a bath. And it took her a while to catch me out. But when she finally did, I asked her, "However, and she said to me, "You didn't wet the soap." And that for me embodies my sister and her tenacious ability to find unequivocal truth. Needless to say, I got in a lot of trouble that day. Gail had incredibly high standards. So if she told you that you really spot things through, which is something like really had problems with in trial, or that you'd really done good, you felt shocked. It was kind of like earning an Olympic medal. And if ever you needed advice or wanted to bend someone's ear, she was there for you. She had many nicknames, some of which are not really supposed to share outside the family. Luigi was one of them. For Louis, our last name, and G, the first initial. This nickname came from Rob, and we always thought it not part of his temple. Another was her Instagram name, Louis. But also G, Louis. But also, when you think on it, she really was bonding so many of us together. And her love is for us, one another. So without her, each of us would be who we are today. Her name is Gail Louis. Let's not forget it.
Thank God.
Family and friends, we are interrupting the interruption to get back to the program. And we're giving dear Allison the option of completing her poem Amplify. She's good? Okay. All right, friends and family, please find yourself a comfortable place to sit down. Like,
Maybe that,
Sounds a little weird.
yeah, you can't, you're garbled.
Well, that's because we're amplifying it as much as we can for the people in the back.
It's good, that's how it's been.
Standing.
hello.
Okay.
Tina, us loud talkers are gonna just have to talk loud. This is the day of the loud talkers. We've hand selected people who have loud voices for the rest of the program. Ah. All right, friends. Well, thank you, family members, for those amazing remembrances. We do have one addition to the family presentation, and that is a reading of the poem by Katie Barron, a friend of the family. She's going to read a poem that is very meaningful to Betty. And so here comes Katie now. And I'm gonna adjust your microphone.
Great, thank you. Okay.
You're gonna have to really project.
All right, this is a hearing test. Are we okay? Okay, great. I'd like to read this poem that Betty, Gail's mom, had chosen. I know she hopes these words will bring you some comfort. Though we cannot see you with our outward eyes, we know our soul's gaze is upon your face, smiling back at us from within everything to which we bring our best refinement. Let us not look for you only in memory, where we would only grow lonely without you. You would want us to find you in presence, beside us when beauty brightens, when kindness glows and music echoes eternal tones. When orchids brighten the earth, darkest winter is turned to spring, may the stark grief flower with hope in every heart that loves you. May you continue to inspire us to enter each day with a generous heart, to serve the call of courage and love until we can see your beautiful face again. In that land where there is no more separation, where all tears will be wiped away from our mind, and where we will never lose you again. This is adapted from On the Death of the Beloved by John O'Donoghue. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. All right, we are transitioning to remembrances of professional remembrances, and we're very fortunate to have the inimitable Tina Yen from EPA, but also Tina just leaving the Pearl Jam tour for a few days so she could be here. And thank you, Tina, for making arrangements with Eddie and company.
I always told Gail her music was boring, that she needed to come rock with me, but she stuck to James Taylor for some reason. So for those, can you hear me in the back? Okay, so for those who don't know me, I was Gail's colleague at EPA, and over 20 years we worked together. She was my cubicle neighbor, my teammate, my boss lady, mentor, my venting wall, my office spouse, which was very important when I had to clean up her crap. My confidant, my peer, and most importantly, my friend. So many of us spend a large portion of our lives in our careers and our jobs. When we're lucky, we find work with like-minded individuals with whom we bond over those shared goals. But when we're really lucky, we also find our friends at work. And together we become a branch of a chosen family. Most of us chose the EPA because of our passion for protecting human health and the environment, and our conviction that this work is how we help. We stay most of the time because of the people. Gail exemplified everything we love about the EPA family. She was smart, capable, compassionate, supportive, and a special friend of mine, a favorite of mine, just a little bit snarky. She was exceptional and truly dedicated to contribute in making the world a better place. I'd like to take a moment to ask the EPA family here with us today to stand with me for a moment, if you're able, trick I learned from the Olympics, and take a look around at this wonderful family. We stand with you here today to say farewell to one of the best of us. Excuse me. A lot of these faces are from the past, from the current. We have all different generations of EPA here. And a lot who couldn't be with us here today, but who we share our family. I wasn't surprised to see a bunch in the back row there, right where Gail would be. And no surprise, loudmouth up front is the one who got elected to stand up here to talk to you all. So the lore goes that Gail was introduced by a friend of hers to Tim Zelensky. And being in an era of enviously easy hiring, Tim helped bring on board Gail to start what would be 34 years of an incredibly impressive career. Our work can move slowly at times. We don't always get the big flashy wins, although notably, as we've heard, Gail did with her critical role in helping the Klamath River run free today. So I'm not going to tell you her resume or her career highlights because I'd be up here all day. And rather, I'll talk about the respectful partnerships that she built inside and outside of the agency, the dependability that she brought to every team, the support she provided her staff, the kind ear she would lend as she listened to us stress out, vent, and whine. Her quiet grace, gently but firmly working us through tough decisions to make sure we kept our eye on the prize. And as Rob and everyone mentioned, Gail would hate all of this attention. When she announced her retirement from EPA, I had to sit her down and sternly inform her that she would suck it up and let people celebrate her, that we needed it. We needed to thank her for a career and the value that she brought to our family. In planning, we all agreed that a roast was out of the question because no one could think of a damn bad thing to say about her. So instead, we gathered in a virtual room deep in the pandemic, people patching in from their homes from all over, just so we could spend time with her, to tell stories, to share memories, and look at photos of her EPA journey. She told me she did not know so many photos of her even existed, but it took 34 years and hundreds of people to accumulate the 30 photos that we could find. I don't know the story of the wig, but someone here must. Probably Sue. So those stories and photos let us celebrate all that she was and her dedicated career, but also as somebody who had a great sense of humor and a willingness to be silly in the way that you only do with family. We knew her to be possibly one of the kindest and most supportive people any of us would ever meet. She would always tell us, but more importantly, she would show us. She didn't just say it, her actions spoke much louder. She mentored us, fed us snacks, always with the snacks. She gently but firmly steered us toward being our best selves and wellness pills. Her caring support of our EPA family went beyond the office, of course. Dropping off soup to our porches when we were sick, holding our babies to do errands, collecting reused items for those kids, offering her couch when we were between housing, and activating our network when one of us was in crisis, bargain hunting with us, actually meeting us for lunch or a hike instead of just saying, oh, we should meet up sometime. Recommending restaurants to us, although I think this was her least altruistic thing because she wanted to eat at those restaurants. She showed us over and over with her actions how much she cared and how much we meant to her. She was an exceptional colleague, an exceptional friend. Our EPA family will continue to embrace their memories of her warmth and kindness and the fact that she could really rock a tutu
Thank you, Tina. We are going next to remembrances of friends. And coming up now is a dear mutual friend, Pam Sogi. And then that will be followed by my lovely wife, Nancy Lindsay.
I feel super honored to be one of the people selected to be here because I feel like Gail had so many extraordinary friends. So many of us really felt special because of her. And I listened to everybody, and there's an absolute consistency of the person that everybody is describing. And I'll continue to reinforce some of those concepts. So first of all, clearly, we know that Gail had style, right? Her bold colors. I'm so happy that there's so much purple and that we're not all black. She had a love of texture that she had in her clothes and her shoes and her bags or hats that she would wear, and in her family and her friends and all that fabulous food she loved. And just look at all of us that she's brought together today, because she could combine textures and colors and people and help enrich us in more than just a way that one person could. I first met Gail in the spring of Nico's kindergarten year. He was very adorable, right? And I can't tell you when was that moment that we met. You know, it could have been in the little yard, waiting for the kindergarten door to open and the kindergartners to go in, or from them come out at the end of the day. Or honestly, it could have been in any room in that school, because Gail volunteered in all of them. She's organizing the art station, putting photos in the carousel for people to pick and then kids to pick and then write stories about themselves. She did, of course, advance her career as a volunteer to the very esteemed position as library monitor. And I remember her telling me, because Gail did like to tell stories, and she did enjoy telling stories about her family. She told me that it's a high profile job. And so Gabriel in the morning said, "Mom, you're going to the library duty today. Can you look cool? Like put your hair in a ponytail and maybe wear sunglasses," right? So I'm sure she probably did the ponytail. I doubt Dale wore sunglasses in the library, but I don't know, maybe anything for Gabriel, you know? So in addition to just volunteering, you know, inside the school and at the fun fair and the walkathon and driving on field trips, she also participated in raising money for the school by hosting and attending events. One of those events that she hosted for 5 or maybe 7, I think it might be 7 years, was Chick Flicks. Anybody go to Chick Flicks? Anybody? Yeah. Chick Flicks is serious stuff. So it was an event where women would, from Joaquin Miller, the parents would come and enjoy fabulous food, of course, very Gail, you know, and drinks and desserts, and then settle in for a thought-provoking feminist documentary film, like Devil Wears Prada, Mamma Mia, I think The Other Boleyn Girl, you know, it was serious stuff. Because Gail, in addition to being really serious about life, was really fun. We had fun, funny, you know, all those things. And Rob and Gail all attended events. And this is kind of a trick that the school plays. By you have an auction, and then Rob and Gail would hold up their paddle and bid, and then be able to pay that money to the school to go over to their friend's house for dinner. Right. And some of them, you'll see some of those pictures that they got to dress up in costumes, like in tie-dye. There's an admiral's outfit or something I saw you in. And come over to the house. And I think they did have a good time at those, but I think it was harder for Gail because as an officially paying guest, she wasn't really encouraged to bring food, right? Nor should she help with the dishes. Right? But Gail, you know, she did show up with a gift for the host because of course, you know, you need to do that. So this was all decades ago. You know, an elementary school lasts for 5, 7, depending, you know, how many children you have, years. But it's a really like fundamental time for us parents, right? That we learn to talk to teachers and make new life friends. First year, I knew that Gail was someone that I wanted to be more like, you know, and my daughter and I talk about, like, we want to be more like Gail. We want to be Gail when we grow up, you know. And she always knew, really, like, she had good advice about the right thing to do, obviously the right place to eat, how to give more to the community. In addition to all that, again, you know, that she was really funny, and without her, I would not have known about the existence of the Halloween fairy. Anybody know about Halloween fairy, right? There is a fairy who takes some trick-or-treat candy from those who might have a lot and redistributes it to those who don't have so much, right? I would never have heard of that. She also introduced me to Pink Martini, the band. Just no, that I think, oh, you can, yes, here's some more Halloween story.
The funny thing is, Gail invented this Halloween fairy so that Nicholas and Gabriel's Halloween candy would disappear, or some of it would disappear. So the next year, she asked Nico what he's gonna be for Halloween, and Nico says, I'm not gonna be anything. I'm gonna wait for the Halloween fairy to bring me candy.
See, how enriching is a life that has stories like that, right? So Gail has given us the gift of herself, her bold colors and sophisticated textures, her principles and her laughter. And she told great stories. She went to concerts and lectures. On hikes, she would identify all of the flowers, and she always brought snacks, right? She was just an inspiration. She was a delight, and we lost her both too suddenly and too soon. She will always be with me in my heart and in my head, telling me where to find free parking and encouraging me to enjoy fabulous food with friends. Thank you.
Okay, we had the EPA family stand up, but I think we need the Joaquin Miller Elementary School to stand up too. There's a lot of you here. All part of Gail's extended family. I'm Nancy Lindsay. I first met Gail back in the late 80s when she started at the Environmental Protection Agency, working with Tim and Sam. We all worked in the Superfund program before she went on to water, where she did such amazing things. And what started as a work friendship really just blossomed into a lifelong friendship, which you're hearing from so many here. Gail, my real first formative memory of Gail is when Tim and I were house hunting for so, and Gail said, hey, come on over to Oakland. We bought a house. And, you know, we'll fix dinner, we'll show you around. There's a little area called Oakmore that you might like. Doesn't that totally sound like Gail? Already the insider tips. So, of course, we bought a house a half a mile away, and then we had kids at the same time, Sienna and Nico, and then Gabo a little later. We spent a lot of time together, and that really became a fast family friendship. I always consider Gail one of my very closest friends. Uh-oh, okay. I can pull myself together, Pam. Thanks for having faith in me. But you know, it really, I realized, you know, I consider her this amazing friend, and I was pretty sure I was special. But more recently, I realized really whether you knew her an hour, like Robin mentioned, the person meeting Gail, or 10 days, as folks who just went on the Baja trip with us know, or years and decades. Gail treated everyone as special and everyone the same. And I'm going to look for nods and smiles in the audience as I go through a little of these examples, because I'm proving a point, which you all know anyways. But Gail, as has already been mentioned, was such a gifter, right? She just loved giving gifts. And Tim and I had the good fortune of living between Gail's house and the farmer's market. Any given Saturday, we'd have a little knock on the door, and there's Gail with fresh strawberries, peaches, sunflowers, whatever, brightening our day. Okay, I'm seeing some head shaking, thank you. And she'd just say, oh, they just look so good, I had to share them. And while we were on the path to her home, I know good and well she was stopping off at other houses along the way, right? It was your birthday, you had been sick, you had had a loss, you needed TLC. Gail showed up on your doorstep, always with something in hand. She also mentions the consummate, and she would always hunt in little offbeat boutiques and sample sales, and she had the most amazing gifts that she would come up with. Rob, I'm sorry, I'm not giving you any credit. We all know that Gail was the shopper, but she did give you credit. Anyways, we have like an acorn and oak leaf thing going. And so our house is filled with things from Gail, the acorns hanging from the chandelier, the placemats that are acorn and oak leaves, even a fire starter that's in like the shape of an oak leaf. I mean, it's everywhere, right? And so if you had a theme, which I'm sure many of you have your own theme, Gail was looking for it, and she would find it, and she would say, it made me think of you, and she gave it to you, right? Catherine, I see you smiling. And then, of course, meals was another thing that we all have shared with. We've already been talking about how much Gail was into food. And whether we had an amazing meal at the Louis Cans with mouth-watering, delightful dishes on these like super exquisite serving dishes, or if we were going out for a quarterly, which we adults used to do kind of quarterly, semi-quarterly. And we had some amazing meals together. One really stands out to me where we went to the truffle dinner at Olivetto's. And you would go and they'd come out with a big platter of truffles, and you would get to pick the truffle that you wanted shaved onto your dishes. Well, we picked out a truffle the size of my fist. It was like $600 of truffles. And they shaved it on every single dish. And that was truly one of the most amazing meals ever, and worth every penny, I might add. Don't you think, Rob? Yeah. You know, when people have been talking about Gail's insider tips, she was not a know-it-all. She would just slip little ideas into your head. You said, I'm going to Istanbul, I'm going to wherever. Whether it's, you know, Japan or London or New York, she knew where to go, where to eat, what to see, all the hidden gems, and was very forthcoming, sharing all of her secrets. Like, we didn't need Rick Steves, we had Gail. Okay, I'm seeing more heads nodding, thank you. And then many of you had the opportunity to actually travel with Gail and Rob, whether it was Southeast Asia, I know a few of you are here, Maine, London, Santa Rosa. I mean, you know, she was like the host with the most, and she would share all of her tips and love traveling with friends. We had an amazing trip to Japan when the kids were little, and Gail and Rob shared their home. They shared their friends, some of whom are on Zoom from Japan. And they shared the most magical place on the planet with us. And no, it was not Tokyo Disney. It was Hitoji, which was a Japanese cultural heritage site in Nara, a traditional home with the shoji screen doors that made the room big or small, the tatami mats, you remember. And we were overlooking the rice fields. Behind us was a little hill with a very enchanted little forest with all these shrines. And we would take the kids out to go meet Totoro, because of course Gail also introduced us to Totoro. And that was just like the most magical. Oh, I can't look at my I can't look at the kids. A magical trip, because we could sit on the veranda and let the kids, Nico 6, Sienna 5, Gabu 3, run wild through the rice fields with only a walkie-talkie. Something that we absolutely could not fathom doing here at home. So that was a real treat, seared into my memory as one of life's highlights. And then I have to tell a quick little aside about Japan, because we've already pointed out Gabu asking Gail to look cool. But Nico started kindergarten in Japan, and it was Yochen school, and Nico showed up with like peanut butter and jelly sandwich, of course, right? Kindergarten, PB&J. And then he came home and everybody had like given him a hard time because like he didn't have a super deluxe fancy bento box made by his mom. And Gail was mortified, right? And she corrected that, right? I remember her working on it. She was working on, oh my God, I got to make radishes into like a flour. But she did it. She did it because she was a cool mom in Japan too. Anyways, I need to wrap up because I'm way over time, but I will say that fast forward to retirement, and Liz Goldman and I hiked with Gail on Tuesdays. She always picked the places to go. She had like the regional parks, top 2024 challenge that we were trying to do. And she had hiking groups with like many of you every other day of the week, right? So I think that Gail would want us to join forces to finish off the 2024 challenge. So please see me, see Liz. And, you know, besides being out in nature and getting some exercise, the best thing about hiking with Gail was talking with Gail, right? You could really talk with Gail. She was the best listener on the planet. You could tell her your scariest worries to your wildest dreams, and she was a vault. You knew she wasn't repeating it. And if asked, she would share with you some insights and thoughts and something thought-provoking if you asked. So that was Gail. You know, I know that you've been saying, oh yeah, she did that for me too. She was special, proving my point, but I do think I might still be a tiny bit special because year after year, she worked side by side at the Joaquin Miller yard sale with me, and she really detested the yard sale. Okay, I'm seeing all kinds of nods. Anyways, Gail always pitched in. She always paid it forward. She always treated everyone as special, setting an amazing example for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. We are going to open the floor now for sharing memories of Gail. We have 15 or 20 minutes. We're asking people to keep their remarks to about a minute or two. And we're going to start off the festivities with one of the greatest environmental leaders that I've ever known, and she's in charge of the state now, Ms. Alexis Strauss.
Good afternoon. That is not true whatsoever. I wanted to thank Tim and Nancy, Gail's family, for hosting us. I join my many Environmental Protection Agency friends in paying tribute to beloved Gail. We are a large cohort of past and present day colleagues united by our shared commitment to environmental and public health protection. Deep friendships were formed and sustained over the years, as you heard from Tina. In this setting, Gail was a much loved and valued part of the EPA organization. And for me, Gail was a joy to work with. She was always prepared and positive and professional, a true public servant. She brought her winning smile and positive energy into every meeting. At a pre-COVID time, when we all saw one another every day, all day in the office, Gail will always be integral to our memories of working together through challenges and successes. I don't think I can continue to celebrate taking down the Klamath River dams without thinking of Gail and colleagues here and not here who have worked so hard with state, tribal, federal, and others to make this happen. What a great tribute. Gail will always be integral to our memories of working together through challenges and successes. And I wanted to thank the EPA family for coming from near and far today to honor Gail. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. So what we're going to do also is, if you're interested in saying a few words, you can approach. We'll take a little queue of get on the on-deck circle here, 2 or 3 people at a time. Right now, I'm going to call up Captain Paul Jones, because I know he wanted to say a few words. And once Paul gets up here, then if there's others who would like to offer some remarks, then we can gather over on the pavement there, and then we'll know how many people that we are going to have. Hello, Paul.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you can hear me in the back. I thought about preparing some remarks for you, and then I thought, no, in honor of Gail, I'm just going to let it flow, because I think that's what she would want. And in addition to that, I know that, well, I expected that many of you, and you have indeed done this, who spoke before us, would say the really important things. So let me just reflect back on a couple of them that I heard. Rob, I think I heard you say that Gail made people feel special, heard, and valued. And that is indeed true. And, you know, one of the things that she did for me is she gave a gift. And before I tell you exactly what that gift is, let me just say that for the 27 years that I worked at EPA with her, she was often very, very close to me. Just a few feet away, for several years, she was right next to me. We had a little cul-de-sac, and I know a number of you were here, who are here, who lived, you know, worked in that cul-de-sac. To me, Gail was just like this, almost like a radiance, a warmth of just being there. Just every day we would walk up and she'd say, "Hey, PJ, how you doing?" And she was always there to listen and to reflect back what she heard. She taught me the value of responding instead of reacting. And that's just a lifelong gift. And I really value it. I wanted to close my comments with a poem. It's a poem from the great poet Wendell Berry, and it's the piece of Wild Things. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in the beauty on the water and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and then free. Thank you.
Gail Louis, Zichrona Livracha. In the Jewish tradition, we say Zichrona Livracha when we say the name of someone who's died, of blessed memory. We say this because every life is a blessing, but I think it's also fair to say that some more so than others. And Gail's perhaps more so than almost anyone I've ever met. We met in 2005 when we moved to California, and Sam and Gabe pretty much immediately became friends, and we became family. And I don't have nearly enough time to talk about all of the Christmases and Passovers, and Leah's still mad at you for tricking her into eating a pine cone off the Bouche Noel. The privilege of being on Masada for Gabriel's bar mitzvah. So instead of that, I'm going to talk about my shirt. As many of you who know me know, in 2013, I was diagnosed with lymphoma. And we were supposed to go to Hawaii, our family and the Louis Cans, and I couldn't go because I needed to be hooked up to an IV. So Gail and Rob took Sam and our younger child, Leah, and took them on vacation with them so they wouldn't have to be around while I was being treated. And Gail brought me back this shirt. I know you're shocked that she bought me a purple shirt, but she did. You know, I can never say enough about what Gail did for us and our family and all of the wonderful times we spent together. And I can't believe I'll never see her and my wife Lynn fighting over who's going to do the dishes again. Lynn couldn't be here, but she sends all of her love. And Gail Louis, Zichrona Livracha.
Hi, everybody. I've been trying to think of what to write for a couple weeks, and I just kind of
Be close to the microphone because it's really
put together a few stories, some memories that are really important to me. Gail is a huge influence on the person I've become today, not just through herself, but through her two amazing children, Gabe and Nico. I love you both so much. And I see her in the way both of you hold yourselves today. Gail taught me how to be sarcastic along with my own father. But she taught me how to do it in a way that was tinged with sweetness and caring and love. I know that she found a little bit of an escape from her male-dominated household with my mom and my sister, who could not be here today, but both send a huge amount of love. Every holiday I spend with you guys was really magical. Gail's the person who broke my hatred of Christmas as a young Jew. Her persistent care was just taught me what the holiday was supposed to be about. Gail taught me how to adventure. Going and building sandcastles with your family every summer was really a special moment for me, and I wish that I could share the adult that I've become now with her, because she's just a huge part of it. And I know a lot of us feel affected by her as well. Any of us young people who came into her home were treated with the same sweetness and kindness as Gabe and Nika. Honestly, maybe a little more. Oh. I loved her so much, and yeah, she'll always be a part of me.
Thank you. I'm Alice. I was part of the Joaquin Miller crew. I was part of the Chick Flicks crew. And I want to just correct a couple of things. Nancy, I believe it was that, especially in the later years. Yes, Gail going through the detritus of the Joaquin Miller families was definitely not something she enjoyed, but she did it for the school. And also saying Gail brought snacks is like saying the Titanic was a boat. She would usually unpack a cooler the size of, New England and just keep bringing things out. But I was one of the ones who did the Chick Flicks dinner and the French dinner. And I remember Gail and Rob bought the French dinner once on the condition that we would eat it with them. And for some reason, we just couldn't figure out a way to do that. And now it kills me that we didn't. And I remember, Gail's one of those people I was always, like many of you probably, I would eat something and I think, I gotta tell Gail about this, or I'd go someplace and I've got to tell Gail about this. But I just wanted to share one of those weekends we were doing Chick Flicks, and, we were all grousing about, oh, there's a soccer game, and and then there's this project the kids have to do, and I can't believe we're doing this dinner in the midst of it. And did anybody buy limes? Either nobody bought limes or everybody bought limes. And I remember having a moment though, and thinking in there in Gail's kitchen, which was one of my best memories. One day we're going to look back on this. We're complaining so much, but we're all going to look back on this really fondly. And we do. And I'm really glad I had those moments with her and the moments in Maine last year. So I'll always carry a piece of her with me.
Yes, I think so. Hi, my name is Nancy Harney, and I'm here to set the record straight a little bit, because I'm actually the reason why Gail got a job at EPA. I heard some other things here, and actually, to be more specific, it's my mother who was really the reason why Gail got a job at EPA, and I'm going to explain that. And I need to stay from Gail for a second and talk about Rob. And Rob is actually my cousin through a complicated thing that I'm not going to bore anybody with, but through marriage, we are cousins. And my parents were very good friends with Rob's parents. They were in the New York area. My parents were in the New York area, and they did family stuff together. And I had moved out to the Bay Area, and I remember getting, I can't remember timing. I can't remember any of the years or anything like that, but I'd been here and my mother gave me a call and said, your Judy and Arthur's son, Rob, has moved to San Francisco and you should call him. And I said, no, that is not going to happen ever. And and it slid. I mean, I never had any contact with him and never. And then, I don't know, sometime further down the line, Gail and Rob were back in New York there was some kind of family gathering at your mom's house. And my parents were there. And at this point, I was working in Region 9. And my mother started chatting with Gail. And this was when Gail was still working for Citizens for a Better Environment. And my mother mentioned that she had a daughter who was working for EPA. And so Gail said, oh, I am very interested in working for EPA. So my mother gave Gail my contact information, which was a phone number, which was the only technology we had back in those days. And Gail called me when she was back in the Bay Area. And we got together for lunch and one thing led to another. And I ended up, I don't know whose numbers and whose names I gave her. I don't think it was, I know it wasn't yours. It's like,
We're gonna talk.
but that's how, and so eventually she ended up getting a job at EPA. However, I would meet Gail periodically for lunch and we became friends while we were at EPA, but I still hadn't met my cousin Rob. And so there came a time when there was going to be a camping trip a group camping trip in Tuolumne Meadows in Yosemite. And Gail invited me to come along. And she said, you'll be able to meet Rob. And in fact, that's exactly what happened. We went to this camping trip in Tuolumne Meadows, and that is where I met you for the first time. And that's how we became friends. And it continued. And so Gail is actually the person who helped me meet my cousin Rob. And it's been a beautiful thing. So, I mean, we can.
I think this is gonna be okay.
Okay, my name is Janet. I am one of those people fortunate enough to have met Gail and Rob on a trip to Southeast Asia where we got to spend a little bit of time traveling with them, and it was one of the best trips ever. I think it's also fitting that I am following Nancy, since she was the person who was responsible for Gail going to EPA. Gail's this person responsible for me being at EPA. And I've told this story to a few people. I had a job that I didn't really care for that much, and it was definitely not gonna last long, and I was complaining a lot. This was in 1995 when EPA was hiring so that they could then go through a RIF and fire people. Job announcements. And eventually I realized I would have to either apply to one of these jobs or stop whining. And I wasn't going to stop whining. So I applied to the job and got it. She's also the reason that our daughter went to Joaquin Miller. She also introduced us to Joaquin Miller. And you all know all the wonderful things that have been said about Gail. I don't want to repeat them, but I will just sort of amplify it, that she is one of the most generous people I know. I don't know how she did that. I don't know how you have so much room for more and more and more people. And most of us felt like we were her best friends. I don't know how a person does that. And I know that we were talking about Betty's influence and Ron's influence, her dad, and I think that those are both true. I was speaking to Betty earlier, and I really appreciate you guys. And I like what she said about trying to be grateful, because I really am grateful for the time that I had with Gail. For probably a decade, when we were both working part-time, same schedule, she also introduced me to that. We went on the same hike in Redwood Park 2-3 times a week for a decade. And we watched the seasons pass, and it was just really lovely. I also want to focus on the influence from her father, because I haven't heard anybody say this yet. We were driving home probably from a restaurant, undoubtedly. And I was sitting next to her dad in the backseat of a van. And he was an imp. He was just so funny and sarcastic and sneaky. He was telling me a story about how he had locked his brother in an outhouse when they were kids and left him there for the entire day. So those are the kinds of things that I think about Gail, in addition to all the positive things. She definitely was very sarcastic, very funny. And I blame her for my tendency towards four-letter words. Many of you don't know this, but she could swear a blue streak, and it was so nice. And I don't want to go on too much, but I just want to say one other thing about her. I can only think of 2 disagreements that I had with Gail over the entire time that I knew her. She doesn't know about either of these. One of them, we all know Gail was a great shopper. She was a bargain hunter after my own heart. And she introduced me to all of her bargain sales as well. But for her friends and her family, she would spend freely. She would go to shows, and I disagree with you, Tina. She had actually pretty eclectic musical taste. The one thing I will say that would drive me completely nuts about her, if we were going to a show, she would drive around for an hour to find free parking. And it wouldn't matter if I said, I will pay for the parking. Can we just park here? And it really wasn't worth it, because she had her way, as I'm sure her family knows very intimately. Yeah. Yeah, so I miss her very much, and it's really lovely to see everybody here. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paul Ung. I wasn't planning to speak, but since I see so many friends here, so I gotta say something. After all, I came all the way from Portugal, so I gotta say something. First of all, I met Gail and Rob, Janet and Becky in 1994, about 30 years ago. We was backpacking in Vietnam. Our friendship develops since then. And I'm honored to be part of the Kane and the Louis family. I'm honored to be the uncle that used to babysit Nico and Gabriel. Gail used to call me like, hey, Uncle Paul, you want to babysit the boys? We got a ticket to the symphony tonight. Paul said, sure, come and hang out with my nephews. So here's the deal. So I had to make a deal with Nico. Say, Nico, the day you can say Uncle Paul correctly is $100 bills. So Rob been training Nico. So one day I show up, Nico, just a little boy, Nico walk up, Nico said the famous word, and still stick to this day. Bay of Uncle Paul. Bay of Uncle Paul. So here I come, here you go, $100. That's my memories. And the thing is, I was in Portugal and I was shocked when I heard the news. Because not too long ago, not even years ago, Rob was doing the work in Athens with the earthquakes. So Gail said, hey, Paul, we're gonna be in Athens. So I said, I'll meet you there. So I flew over, hung out with Gail. One thing Gail and I have in common is we love food. So even when we met in Vietnam, I would have my bite and I was doing my recon, check out all the restaurants, came back and report to Gail and Rob, say, hey, I found this restaurant, I found this place for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So when I came to Athens, Gail and Rob, of all of Athens, Gail and Rob found a hole-in-the-wall Chinese restaurant. Authentic Chinese food with homemade dumplings and homemade noodles, handmade. So Gail like, we'll take you here, Paul. So the morning of next day when Rob was working, I walk over to Gail and Rob, Airbnb with the rooftop with a view of the metropolis. And I walk over with Gail Rob, with Gail only, Rob was working. I came in with pastry and Gail got a coffee. We sit and we talk and we got a great view. And after that, Gail and I went to lunch at that Chinese restaurant. And you know, the best homemade, handmade, and just for Europe, for $3 or something, you got a dozen of them. You know, like, that's Gail's bargains, you know, find good food and really great deals. But the best part was, I realize it now that I have Gail for the whole half a day and a whole day by myself. Not only I have Gail as my friends, but I have my sister with me. Yeah. And one more thing I want to say, I want to add. Gail, the one that told me about the job in EPA. After backpacking in Vietnam, I came back and Gail said, hey, Paul, there's an opening GS-12. There's a computer job. So, okay, I'll apply for it. Just put them in. Little I know, I got a call for interview. A couple of weeks later, I moved into Rockridge. I have an apartment in Rockridge. But anyway, it's one thing that I hear everybody say, wonderful thing about Gail, but one thing that I want to add that is remarkable. Gail is a very remarkable one. I admire Gail. For 30 years that I know Gail, she have never said any negative things about anyone's. And one thing about Gail, if she doesn't have anything positive to say about anybody, she would never say it. Even though we know that individual, that group is like, stay away, but she never. That's one thing I really admire and love Gail about that. Gail will be sure she will be missed by many of us, from me also. Again, I'm not only losing my friend, but my sister. I always look at Gail as my sister. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so. We are going to close out the public or the open forum here. Public comments. See, there's always thinking about it, EPA. Clayton Krieger, take it away before I get in more trouble.
Thank you, Tim. There are many of us here today, many members of the Klamath River Water Quality Team, and they helped put these comments together. And so the tradition here today, if I could ask the folks from the Klamath River Water Quality Team that are here today, if you could stand up, please. Thank you.
Sure. Talk louder than you think.
Okay. In addition, there are many others who cannot be here, and I offer this memory on behalf of all of us. Gail was an incredible member of all of our water quality efforts in the Klamath River. And her memory is truly a blessing to us all, urging us to be strong, even when the task at hand feels impossible. And there are often times in the 20-year history of this dam removal project that it felt that way. A personal example of how Gail inspired me at times. We were in Wairika for the Klamath River Water Quality Monitoring Program meetings, the election night of 2016. We were all devastated. I did not sleep a wink that whole night. At morning coffee, I told Gail that I did not think I could deliver the opening talk that day. She simply said, Gambetta, and I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, which she shared is a Japanese greeting that roughly translates as, I know you will bring your best to the world. That was classic Gail, and it is all I needed that day. And in fact, I'm drawing on that same lesson today. Now, Gail was an invaluable member of the Klamath River TMDL team, which included water quality agencies in California and Oregon, US EPA regions 9 and 10, and a comprehensive network of tribes, other state and federal agencies, and community-based nonprofits who were close partners in the Klamath technical TMDL development and critical to the implementation plan. The Klamath team came to affectionately refer to Gail as the Velvet Hammer, due to her masterful coordination, outreach, and planning skills. I mentioned this to Rob earlier today, and he said he knew the Velvet Hammer as well. She held us together as a team across this vast watershed and even more vast areas of interest. She was instrumental in standing up the Klamath River Blue-Green Algae Work Group after the discovery of harmful algal blooms in the Klamath reservoirs, and facilitated the launching of the Klamath Basin Monitoring Program, a collaborative monitoring and data management effort in the Klamath Basin, which was pretty unique for a watershed the size of the state of Maryland. She also was an early and strong advocate and supporter of tribal science programs, which provided the data that was necessary for the Klamath TMDL. And I think other people had mentioned she was the snack queen, and she always brought the best snacks to keep us motivated and energized through countless hours of meetings and discussions. Calm and never with a raised voice, she, through the force of will and intellect, got us all to align ourselves in a cohesive team. Over the decade plus that our team worked together with Gail, it was obvious that she believed deeply in partnership, teamwork, and community in her professional life. And she worked hard to sustain those connections and moving groups forward closer to articulated goals. Yes, dam removal is about big yellow machines, and implementation requires many physical activities such as fence building. But the unseen role of building and sustaining a communication framework in the fractious Klamath Basin was just as essential in the restoration activities that are ongoing today. Gail was key to our framework. I remember an evening camping in the Klamath Basin with Gail at Lava Beds National Park with Sue. And we were all huddled in our individual tents. It was cold. There was no sitting around the campfire. And that night, we shared poems, reading from 10 to 10. And now Gail's going to, Sue is going to read one of those poems that really touched Gail and asked me for where the book was, and I gave it to her as a gift.
Thank you. Sleeping in the Forest by Mary Oliver. I thought the earth remembered me. She took me back so tenderly, arranging her dark skirts, her pockets full of lichens and seeds. I slept as never before, a stone on the riverbed, nothing between me and the white fire of the stars but my thoughts. And they floated light as moths among the branches of the perfect trees. All night, I heard the small kingdoms breathing around me, the insects and the birds who do their work in the darkness. All night, I rose and fell as if in water, grappling with a luminous doom. By morning, I had vanished at least a dozen times into something better. We love you, Gail.
Thank you, Sue. Okay, we're going to close this out now. Um, Thank you for your remarkable tributes to Gail. She was one of a person. We will all miss her dearly and forever. To the Louis Kahan family, the people gathered here today in person, in spirit, and online, they are the people that Gail added to your extended families. Please count on us to support you and love you as we all grapple with the loss and grief. Finally, thanks to all of you who have given generously to the causes that Gail believed in. I had the honor of working with Dr. Kahan to establish a charitable fund in Gail's honor with the Western Rivers Conservancy. The dollars that you give to the Conservancy will advance their goal of building a $20 million revolving fund for the acquisition of pristine and imperiled creeks and rivers across the West. This means that the dollars, just like Gail, will be used again and again as an investment in the future and will be a sustained investment for the wild rivers that Gail cherished and defended. Currently, the Conservancy is partnering with the Yurok tribe that Dr. Kahan mentioned to conserve over 47,000 acres in the Klamath River Basin to protect a temperate rainforest in one of the coldest, the most important cold water tributaries to the river. In closing, I'm inviting back up to the podium Oakland's poet laureate, Pam Sogi, for a reading of a poem by Arnold Compton. This poem is special because it was also read during the memorial service for Pam's late husband, Rick Johnson, who we all loved and miss very much. This poem will help bind together the spirits of Gail and Rick.
Thank you for that. This is called instructions. So it's time to listen because you're going to get some instructions about what to do. When I have moved beyond you in the adventure of life, gather in some pleasant place and there remember me with spoken words, old and new. Let a tear fall if you will, but let a smile come quickly, for I have loved the laughter of life. Do not linger too long in your solemnities, but go and eat and talk, and when you can, follow a woodland path, climb a high mountain, sleep under the stars, and for Gail, swim in a cold river. Use your hands one bright day to make a thing of beauty or to lift someone's heavy load, for those have been the realities of life for me. When you walk alone with courage, when you follow the path of right, when you give yourself with love, I will be very close to you. I have followed the valleys. I have climbed the heights of life.
Thank you so much, Pam. Now we all get to get reacquainted with each other. There's going to be some refreshments and of course snacks, because Gail's all about the snacks. So feel free to mingle. Thank you so much for your attendance and bless you all. Thanks.
Okay.